I've spent all my career since starting in the field, which is 25 years or so now, really thinking about the relationship between corpus and dictionary. So this is kind of puzzling out how they relate to each other is central to, is always near the middle of what I'm doing. Thinking about that, I think one of the most helpful things to think is what happens when a child learns a language, which is that they get more and more data, and they build up a representation of the lexicon of the language somehow or other. So they're coming from here to here. And then, well, do they still have the corpus? Well, probably not. We don't really remember everything. Well, there are different psychology theories, but let's assume we don't remember everything, especially when you're my age and you forget everything, which kind of has a suggestion for how the two maybe relate to each other in computational environments or in other kind of environments. And so maybe we ought to be able to do what children do, or what children maybe do, and throw away the dictionary. So we ought to be able to say, we don't need that part anymore. And I didn't think I could really do that on PowerPoint, or not quite so dramatically. So something that an anecdote that Judy Pearsall used at the last one of these conferences was about the boss of the company that made drills, and he needed to explain to his marketing people that what people wanted wasn't drills, so the marketing people should rethink their slogans. People don't want drills, they want holes. They only want the drill to make a hole. So this kind of point is in the whole area of what developed in function theory of lexicography about what the user needs are. And the kind of maxim, I've had the good fortune to work mainly in English, a language very well supplied for learners' dictionaries, and so have quite often been asked, well, what goods? When should I use the corpus and not the dictionary? And I look at the sheer quality of the entries in Oxford Advanced Learners, or this is in a language learning context of Oxford Advanced Learners or Macmillan or Longman, and I think, what can I offer them from the corpus where they won't get a better, quicker, cleaner, clearer answer from the dictionary? And I think, first I think nothing, and then I think, but maybe there are things missing. So one of my sort of user maxim from that is simply this: use the corpus if the dictionary doesn't tell you enough. I wanted to put this one up, especially following Annette Kloser's lovely talk this morning, because this has some very direct, straightforward implications for interfaces. She showed one interface, I think it might be the one from Danske Ordbok, so where the user starts out by getting a choice of whether to open the dictionary or open the corpus. Now, on this basis, that's kind of wrong. She showed another interface which is more in keeping with the previous talk, where the chance to go to the corpus doesn't come at the top level of choices. It only comes if you've looked in the dictionary and not found enough. And that's the point where, if you've looked in the dictionary for a word or a construction, and then you discover you haven't found the you haven't found the answer to your information need there. That's the point at which you want to go to the corpus, I'd say. The corpus only becomes, it's easier and better and friendlier and more helpful and everything else to find the example in the dictionary. And for beginner users, that's kind of likely to be nearly all the time. Going to the corpus is the position to go to when your information need is usually more specialized than is one of the million cases that the dictionary doesn't cover, because even if the dictionary covers the common 500,000 cases, there are still lots of cases where it won't cover that. While I'm on maxims, I thought I'd share with you my other two business maxims. Never trust language technology from people who don't speak the language. This comes up for me quite often. I see Milos laughing there. We have occasional arguments about whether we should use part-of-speech taggers, which we are assured by their authors work well for 27 languages. But don't trust it if it hasn't been extensively checked by people who know that language. If possible, well, maybe develops. Maybe that's overstating. And the other one, just for good measure. Yeah, stands for itself. So this is back to back to the main text. We have the corpus and the dictionary, and really why this sort of matters to me is that we're all in the territory with corpus. I always find myself in the territory with corpus on one side and dictionary on the other. And what I'm kind of interested in is all the space in between, and what the possibilities are that are more corpus-informed dictionaries, or something which we don't necessarily want to put in one camp or the other. I always think of word sketches as somewhere halfway between. Somebody doesn't need to know what a corpus is to find a word sketch helpful. People coming from corporate tend to think of it as something corpus-based and corpus-derived, but people who've never heard of a corpus can quite happily view it as some new form of dictionary. All that we mean by automatic collocation dictionaries are a batch job producing a dictionary out of all the word sketches of the language. We've done this. Oh, bother, it's gone quiet. So we've produced automatic collocation dictionaries for a batch of languages. Quite a lot of this work was part of the CESAR EU project that was part of the Meta. NLP people will know all about the Meta initiatives. CESAR was one of the Meta projects, and so we've delivered 6 of these automatic collocation dictionaries as part of something that is in the Meta data collection. I can't quite remember the terminology. The languages we've done it for so far are English, Hungarian, Czech, Bulgarian, Croatian, French, Maltese, Polish, Serbian, Slovak, and Spanish. And all these are pre-compiled. A word sketches which we've run in batch mode. I don't know many words of Spanish. So a word sketch plus a GoodX example here, just the best GoodX example, i.e. the one that came top according to the GoodX algorithm, the GoodX heuristics for each of the 15,000 top words of the language, something in that order. So that's what automatic collocation dictionaries are, and that's and the ones for the 6 CESAR languages are available for download as a zip file, but without the corpus examples, because the corpus examples created too many legal complications. Back to here. So ACD isn't sort of technically a different point on this chart to the word sketches. It's just that we've produced them all in batch mode. So sometimes it might be helpful to have the whole lot at once, and other times you want an interface to get the one you want when you want it, with correspondingly more options about display and so forth. I particularly wanted to mention the Slovene projects presented by Iztok and Simon Krek and Bologna and their colleagues, which have featured quite high in this conference, because what they're the ones who've taken furthest a picture of dictionary production, which is making a system, which is providing a system that actually does this process of maximizing the automation of modeling what seems to me of modeling this process, to take the output here and to turn that into a dictionary with additional lexicographic input. There's two ways that they've done this, and I think it's an interesting question that might raise its head for quite a lot of you as to what the best way to do between these two options of how to do it. So one option is to take the word sketch in the sketch engine interface as the starting point, and the other is to take the whole set of word sketches as the starting point. And it sort of works like this. The critical question here becomes, what's the most comfortable environment for a lexicographer to take the raw corpus output and turn it into something like a dictionary entry? There's always, the analysis of which collocations go together in the same sense, and collocations and grammatical patterns go together in the same sense. So there's quite a lot. So from from the sketch engine to the finished dictionary entry, there's quite a lot of reorganization of information, of selecting of examples, of editing examples, and so I think you'll probably agree, Iztok, because you've experimented with both methods now, I think. But one way to do it is, in the sketch engine, we've provided functionality called tick box lexicography, which means you can select collocations and select examples in the sketch engine, and then input that into your dictionary editing tool, which might be IDM's tool or ILEX or Schweinelex, or there are several of these candidates which will or the in-house systems at INL. They're all systems where you can do tick box lexicography and then take, with doing quite a lot of editing in the sketch engine, and then put the data into the editing tool. That's the one way of following this. And the other is to say, well, actually, I get more flexibility, and it suits me better, perhaps for all sorts of pragmatic reasons, to first produce an automatic collocations dictionary and to take that whole big data set and put that into the editing environment in one day, in one batch job, and then do the editing in the editing tool. Clearly, the editing tools in question are all quite sophisticated and let you do deleting big XML chunks or moving big XML chunks. The next, and as often happens, least well articulated and well thought through part of this talk relates to this chain here. Again, provoked by Anita's keynote this morning. We can probably all agree that this is something like the chain with optional elements and so forth for getting from the raw data to the users, starting from a corpus and then some sort of NLP processing, then the lexicography, then the decisions about presentation and how we present it, and then all sorts of issues about users, maybe user modeling. There's going to be some feedback loops here. Now, why did I want to show this chart? For a number of reasons. One, just to say, I think everything at this conference can sort of be placed somewhere on this, along this processing chain. The previous talk by Uli, Danny, and Theo was all about these stages. So firstly, I wanted to declare my colours. The bits I'm concerned in are first most, second most, third most, and I'm no great expert in any of those. The second thing I wanted to say that's a bit related to that is that errors propagate. So if you've got problems in the corpus to start with, then they're kind of going to stay there and going to mess things up all down the line. If there are errors that have come in here, there's at least some sort of remedy in that you know that if these stages are okay. And partly for that reason, my concerns about quality are focused on this top end of the chain. And for example, in the automatic collocations dictionary, I'm really quite, I know there are lots of questions about whether we did things well enough here and whether we did things well enough here to give, we've done some work with Ilan Kerneman on some of that data, and there are some things there that weren't quite good enough at that stage so we need to go back to that stage. The more we can work on getting really good corpora processed with high accuracy tools, then the less residual problems will still hang around and mess things up in these stages. Another reason for presenting this slide is that there are lots of other options. We can, from here, we might go straight to NLP users. My company's now got quite a lot of customers that aren't really so interested in this part, but want the output of the corpus plus NLP processing. Let's have a different color. And similarly, there are lots of users who perhaps of writing aid tools and similar. So there are lots where the lexicography will be wanted, but the presentation won't be anything to do with a dictionary presentation, as in the last talk. So that's really the point. So there are lots of optional points there from my perspective. We're all for all of them. We're going to want better corpora and better NLP processing. And this one is even more critical than this one. So this one is really where my heart lies in terms of academic endeavor, and the piece of research we're doing at the moment that I care about most is how you evaluate corpora. We are also exploring other options down at this end, and there are a couple of them I just wanted to show before finishing. You have to understand that automatic collocation dictionaries are, from our point of view, just another variant of word sketches, so I had to talk about lots of other things too, because otherwise there wouldn't have been enough new to say. So first, we have now, we want to offer more nice options for presentation, and one that's just been added very recently on the beta server, so beta.sketchengine.co.uk, is that. A nice, romantic, lovely, pleasant, beautiful, stunning, and delightful representation of the thesaurus entry for charming. So it's another part of viewing this space between corpora and dictionaries. We can do these kinds of representations direct from the corpora with or without lexicographic input. So that was the one, and the other was a response to many requests over the years from people who were interested in using corpora with students in classrooms, typically in English language teaching, classrooms who say all the time, it's too complicated, it puts off the students, it puts me off, there's too many buttons and I don't know what they mean. So it isn't technically very hard to give people less. Here's a prototype of an interface called Skelt, Sketch Engine for English Language Teaching, which is not really different. Underlying isn't different to Sketch Engine, but gives you less buttons. So now we can just put in. It doesn't let you choose a corpus. We know this is for English language teachers, so we don't have to give you a choice of language. And if we gave you a choice of corpus, you wouldn't know which one to choose, and you would just be confused. So that doesn't come into it. So now, a clean, no fuss, no options word sketch. This is very much trial stage. And for those of you involved in English language teaching will be delighted if you go there and go there with classes, with students, whatever. It'll be open access for at least another 6 months. skelt.sketchengine.co.uk. Do please go there and tell us what we should have that we haven't got at the moment. And it's quite like, there's always going to be a debate. We've had a bit of feedback already, and the feedback is always, oh, but I want to be able to do such and such, something we've just taken out to make it simpler. So that debate won't go away, but more feedback means we'll make better choices about what to include and what not to include. And it's got the standard concordance function as well. So, no, help. Honest, it does have the standard concordance function as well. Right, thank you very much.
We have time for 1 or 2 questions. Yes.
Oh. Yeah. Don't you think that you should have your users on both sides of that line? Because it seems to me that increasingly you've got to think about the users when you actually compile your corpus, so that users should be on both sides. First of all, to compile your corpus, you need to know what it is you want to do. In a more like user specific kind of, philosophy. I know that you have huge corpora and you can always select from this huge, but that's not the case for everybody. You may want to compile a specific corpus for a specific project.
Yes. That's very often.
I'm thinking, of course, more about language learning, and that you can't just take. It seems to me UK WOC and say, okay, I'm going to turn UK WOC into a usable corpus for beginners.
Yes, I can only agree there. Yeah.
So it seems to me that having the users on both sides would be even better.
Well, I'll tell you why I'm reluctant to, and it's this diagram here. I like simple diagrams, which I was wondering about adding in. That I think lexicography kind of exists in the intersection between linguistics and information science, and then your point is completely valid. But in terms of this one, I'm definitely a linguist and I'm not an information scientist at all. And my kind of feeling is that that's information science where your point's completely valid, but I kind of also want to say, yes, and this part's linguistics, a lot of which can be done sort of independent of a user perspective entirely. To a large extent. But choosing the data is pretty critical to everything. I can only agree there.
Hi. I want to refer to Skelt. I came to lexicography from a background in teaching English as a foreign language. So I just want to make a very small suggestion. The column headings, object of, subject of, etc., very Chomsky-ish. I think English teachers perhaps would be able to deal with them, but they'd be very off-putting for learners. So maybe something a little bit more user-friendly.
Every attempt we've made to get good labels there gets swamped with criticism immediately. So we're stumped, is the honest answer. We don't know what. We don't know what will be more help. What other than leaving them out entirely, which we sometimes try. That doesn't help either, because we'd love to, but we're stumped. do come and give me suggestions. Yeah. Mm. Okay, Milos has something to add there.
One approach that we are also trying now is to use the communist matches instead of the. One approach we are also trying is that we use communist matches instead of just collocates, so that we sort of think maybe we will be able to get rid of the grammar names.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Just if possible to extend a bit on a couple of things here. One is what you were showing, which reminded me of the visual thesaurus of ThinkMap, and could you elaborate in that context about their work and Wordnik? And the second, could you elaborate on bilingual corpora and its use in this context?
Yes, I mean, again, it's handy to have this one up, because there are so many things that are possible on the presentation front, so many graphical options, and nice pictures, and getting illustrations from Google Images, or there's this sort of flood of possibilities of what can be done here, which leaves me feeling bewildered and confused, and mainly leaves me thinking, well, thank goodness that what I really care about is this bit, because I don't begin to understand all the options possible here. So we've done the word cloud as a sort of example of what's possible. I can envisage quite a lot of other buttons in a little button in the corner here that would be one to get you a visualization or something like that. So it wouldn't be core functionality, but would be an add-on that might sometimes also not be something that we did, but that was the data for that API, that provoked an API call that went to somebody else's software to make a nice visualization of that feature. So my kind of feeling is that there's lots of options we can add on that way, but we want to sort of maintain tight control of this stuff, and then be more open source API, interactive with all sorts of other resources at this stage. Wordnik. It kind of feels like I'm not quite sure how Wordnik's. The biggest difference with Wordnik feels to me that, and from Erin's wonderful presentation a couple of years ago, this came across so clearly that Wordnik's all about playing with language, rather than tasks with language, and that its flavor and the things that it emphasizes are all to help people, usually native speakers, play with the language, and its users are people who want to play with the language. So it's kind of got a bit of a, it's got lots of stuff that's how we might present, how we might interact, but all of that stuff isn't, there's not that much of it that's really linguistics.
I'm afraid of out of time,
Okay.
so thank you, Adam.